first grade. Free kick in at the goalkeeper, long shot attempted. Oh! Great kick pass out wide. That is fantastic. That is sensational. And that's the winner. Hello from all the way down there, and welcome back to the Blacktown Football Hour podcast, episode 26 of the Blacktown Football Hour podcast. Here's a little bell to mark the occasion. Just over a quarter of a century now passed on by. Not sure if you can hear that, but that was two little beeps to go along with it. You might be asking yourself, Marco, why on earth are you on top of a scissor lift? Well, the answer is, can you name another association that goes 20 metres into the air to give you the start of a podcast? And the answer is no. And the answer to the question, which might be also, why are you doing it, is I don't know. But we can, and when you can, you do. So, the start of your podcast is going to be delivered from all the way up here, and I'll slowly make myself, further down towards the ground as the episode goes on. So, I hope you enjoy. So, let's get right into it. We are in week number 2, and unfortunately our final week of grand finals, which means that season 2022 is coming to its close, and it's come very, very quickly, hasn't it? It feels weird when you say it out loud. I know you can't see my facial expressions. I'm also wearing my Top Gun Maverick sunglasses, but it's quite sad to say out loud that it is so close to sort of officially being done in that way. Not to worry though, because we still have plenty of loose ends, if you want to use that term, to tie up. We've got presentations for teams, we've got mini-roos, SAP and GSAP fun days to come, that'll be as well tomorrow, end of season events, and of course we've got grand finals to watch, and for me, grand finals to commentate for you lovely people as well. Tomorrow, which will be a Saturday, this is being recorded on Friday midday, I'll be off to Valentine Sports Park for the day. I'm going to be capturing some footage of our grand finals, so get super keen for that. Keep an eye on your social media feeds throughout the day. We're going to do a bit of a grand final wrap for our Spartans and AYL teams that are in there. Which teams that made it, I'll leave to a little bit later, so keep an ear out as I explain that and as the episode goes on. I'm really excited for that. I've been following these teams all season and beyond as well, and I can't wait to see the amalgamation of hard work and hours that people have put in, and I know that we're going to get results tomorrow. I know that we're going to get results. I have no doubt. So I'm super keen. Apologies if that wind is making things difficult. I might turn this way to block it off, so now you can see my side profile from all that way away. A reminder as well, we're also of course accepting goal of the season votes. That'll be until Sunday night. So when our final grand final has its final whistle, it's a weird thing to say out loud, our final grand final has its final whistle, you will be able, which will be the all-age Division 1 here, which will be covered by me. I think that's when we'll stop counting our votes. So scroll down a little bit on our Facebook and YouTube feeds, the BDSFA Facebook and YouTube feeds. Put in your goal of the season votes as well, but goal of the finals, that will go on a little bit longer. So you can keep submitting those because there's going to be plenty of time for goals to come in all throughout that Sunday, and Sunday the cutoff won't be enough. So goal of the season votes will end this Sunday. Goal of the finals will go on for a couple more weeks after this. So get voting, and while you're there and while you're scrolling through our Facebook feed in particular, sign up for Summer Sixes, by the way. In today's episode, let's go through what you'll hear. You'll hear from the first 2 winners from our Saturday morning grand finals at Blacktown Football Park Field 1. As the Division 1 teams that featured here. Early on in the morning I had a chat to the entire squad and coaching staff, so you can look forward to that. I'll keep them a secret as to who won those games though, but good to see some new clubs out there who perhaps haven't featured as much on this year, but it was really good to see those guys win, and it was some fantastically entertaining games here as well. Frank Labra, the coach of the 12 from Lords FC, a man who was really well received in terms of his happiness and excitement and anticipation of being on the podcast when he first featured on. He is going to be on once again. He had a pretty good end to the season, as I say, with a wry smile that you won't be able to see from that far away. But I'm sure he'll be happy to chat. Well, he was happy to chat again, and you'll see. And as he bows out for his final stint with the club, as he moves him and his family interstate, I'm sure you'll see that he was very happy with how the season ended. If that doesn't give too much away, then I'm not sure how much I can tell without being completely explicit about it. As well, Adam Hardis, former BDSFA board member and current president from Ropes, who helped orchestrate the highest number of grand final club appearances for 2022, talks about his role and the fantastic work of others around him that helped them to get to the magical number, an unlucky number by the way, of grand finals appearances. I'll keep that number secret until we get to that segment in particular, but really good to speak to a club president who is so dedicated and so successful, especially in this year, for one of our youngest clubs as well. The benchmark has been set, by the way. from Eastern Creek Pioneers, Premier League sides, the Premier League 2 sides, double winners on that Friday night. You can watch the little segment I did, just about a 10-minute segment with their coach, Matt Hetrick. Learn to play like the Premier League 2 champions and learn to celebrate like them too. And I'll say that with a grain or a pinch of salt. As I flick my pages over, I would like to say that's all we've got in terms of the interviews for this week. Of course, there are about to be plenty of highlights packages, so this is really an episode for the viewer this week. But what I would like to say in anticipation for the end of the season is, if you are enjoying the Blacktown Football Hour podcast, or in this case, perhaps the Blacktown 59-minute hour podcast, I'm just making a laugh of myself here. But if you do want to see more episodes as the season comes to an end, I need to basically know that you guys want to see more episodes, and the way that you can do that, as I try and make eye contact with you from this far away, is to like the video. So go onto the YouTube page, or just click out of the full screen mode, pull the car over on the side of the M7 on the way to Blacktown Football Park. You might be go into one of the emergency parking lanes, of course, and do it safely, and like the video. So if we do hit 15 likes on the both videos for this week and what will be episode 27, which could be the last week of the podcasts, but if we do hit above 15 likes on both of those, which would be teetering on a record, by the way, I will know that you'll want to see more episodes, and I will keep them going as long as the likes keep coming in. So before you go on any further in this episode, stop what you're doing, like the episode, so that we know that you want to see more Blacktown Football Hour content. Secondly, before we get into the interviews, a big thank you, by the way, to all the BDSFA staff and board, the Spartans staff and the board, almost 10,000, forgive me, registered players, the coaches, parents and family and friends of all of those registered players, the Spartans players and coaching staff and parents, every TD, every physio, every fill-in commentator, every podcast guest, every weekend worker staff who have been here early and worked late on weekends, of course, especially on grand final days too. You've been amazing, particularly in recent weeks, and you deserve nothing but the best. So from the BDSFA and Spartans family, with love, just a couple more days to go until the formal end to the season of 2022. Everything that's being done is being done by the gritty, overtime determination of everyone, blurry-eyed and coffee-driven at this point, sleep-deprived and running on adrenaline at the moment. We are certainly almost there. Right, let's look at some results before we go into interviewing our guests. So I'll go through all the games that I commentated here on Blacktown Football Park Field 1 over the weekend. That was 5 games, 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. I'm going to show you highlights packages for all of those. First up, Eastern Creek and Reserve, and then first grade. Shout out to Ben Poker Watson. Shout out to potential goal of the finals winner Danny Boozers from Prospect. Shout out Brian Sohn, and shout out Matt Hetrick and the Hinton boys. Up first are your reserve grade highlights. Straight after will be the first grade highlights. Very long throw in there. It's missed. A whole bunch of Eastern Creek players. We've had to dart back in recovery. Look at the pace here of Blake Curry. Still Blake Curry past Scotty Mee. Blake Curry! And it's a goal! Early on for Prospect. Blake Curry does what he's been doing all season. And the man with 13 on his back has 38 goals this season. 38. I may be wrong. And it comes from just behind the halfway line. There's a little shadow, but a touch here for Arujo on the turn, and it's been spilled, and it just goes across the face. Danger not lost on them yet. On the follow-up! Mistake on the back, capitalised in the greatest way possible, and we are tied at 1 here at Blacktown Football Park. Eastern Creek were hungry hippos in trying to get back there, and they pounced on it. And in the middle, Rimats. Oh, Megsy's man. Rimats from distance, and really awkward technique there. The danger with the keeper out of position. It needs to be cleared. Boozers, can he turn towards goal? On the follow-up, great technique, and a great goal too! A strike from distance to remember. What a goal! Trey Barton puts them ahead. 3 goals in your first half. Eastern Creek looking to respond straight away though. And straight away they might do it. Oh, they've done it! Ben Watson! 4 goals, 2 in a minute and a half. Eastern Creek fans go just as mad. This is grand final football. Viewers starting to return back. Oh, one back. Forget what I was saying. Kurt Elborough tries to feed it through, and maybe Ben Watson! Oh, Ben Watson! Unstoppable! The grand final gift. The first one to the park. the lap that he took to compose himself around Blacktown Football Park Field 1 tonight, just to him and his AirPods, whatever he was listening to, it was the work of magic. Wide for Zach Meyer to have a stab at goal. He's going to try and turn provider, flicks it back, Kurt Labra. Great ball, Watson! Hat-trick hero, Ben James Watson! The 10 on his back, the star floating above his head, and now a 2-goal deficit for Prospect is a 2-goal advantage for Eastern Creek. Direction of goal, Arujo tries it, deflection 1, deflection 2. No way, could he have a poker? Assisted this time! It's got to be over now. Eastern Creek too good going forward. The man who will play goalkeeper in the next game, Kurt Labra, goes from instead of goal scorer to provider, the inverse of which. Not through the last line of defence. Bouzis! Rocket of a goal! Wow. And that's why, as he notches up his 40th goal contribution, 20 and 20, only accompanied by Lionel Messi and Thierry Henry, shying away considering their current leads. They're going to go forward again. Sean Levin on the turn. And then, no way, will he get another one? I have no words. I simply have no words. I'm speechless. What do you say? Goal scoring duct in recent weeks, I should say. Brian Sohn. What a touch out of the sky. Sohn! From Malaysia to Blacktown City, Singapore to Spartans, from Sydney FC's youth to Blacktown Football Park, Brian Sohn scores early, and Eastern Creek continue their dominance here tonight, and their dominance on this surface against this side. The run of Sohn, if he decides to make it, he's going to receive it here, gives it back, Liam Hamilton, happy birthday Liam Hamilton! A grand final goal, doubles the advantage, and whole team celebrations are about to become whole Eastern Creek crowd celebrations too. It's not been their night so far. Could it get worse here? Great ball in! Joe Dunn! 3-0! 3-0! Third. It just didn't fall to the right foot. Oh, what a ball. That's perfectly timed. A 3v the goalkeeper. Squared. Zone! Game over. It's the grand final, the perfect bow out for their prestigious coach. Brian Sohn has a double when it counts most and makes up for being oh so close to that premiership. What an amazing set of games. So many goals. And Eastern Creek, you deserved it after the way your season ended and the way last season ended for you guys too. On the next day, on the Saturday, where the Deploy Premier League 21s, Workers and Prospect again, could Prospect make amends for their Friday night woes. To get them off to a great start, Chris Chum. And it is a great start. It's a great penalty. The penalty to score and equalise things down the middle, as composed as you like. His name is of the Turkish ring, but can he find the back of the Blacktown Football Park net? He can't. Of Sudanese descent, he plays alongside his cousin as the two centre-backs. Hands on hips, a quick run-up, hit it, and score it. Stinging the palms, breaking the fingers, and frustrating the goalkeeper. Here they are with the advantage. Can they keep themselves in it? A really good penalty. A really good penalty by the very experienced Ronak Srivastava. 13 goals, 8 assists in open play. What about from the spot? Rimats. Oh, that is deft as you like. Their other centre-back. A perfect penalty. Formerly a Prospects NPL side, here now to play with friends. How about the finish from the spot? The finish from the spot. Wonderful. It's the champions. And a really good penalty. Premiers, will it be champions? It'll be champions! Cue the celebrations! Blacktown Workers' hearts broken from the spot, from 11 yards once again. But finally here in our 2022 Grand Final Series, Prospect and their Deploy Premier League squad have something to go home with after the regular season. They could in fact make amends for their Friday night woes. Congratulations. A very, very close game throughout. Both teams probably scared to go behind, and fair enough, it is a grand final. The penalty shootout certainly delivered. In the reserve grade for the PL1, the Deploy PL1, Quakers shook up the place. Have a look at the highlights now. As I start to come back down to earth, the showpiece event on our Saturday. Apologies for the issues we had with the stream on the day, but what can I tell you without giving too much away? Ethan Eichen is chill like that. A shout out here as well to the late, great Ryan Dimmick, a representative of Doonside, of course, who were in that first grade grand final. But take it away, Doonside and Ponds, for what was a fantastic, fantastic game. Wait a second. Highlights time. I'll read it out to you now, by the way. Jordan O'Keefe, 10 goals, 8 assists. Ethan Eichen, 12 goals, 8 assists, and those include some against Ponds too.
It's a good ball there, Mark.
Fantastic. Eichen, can he swivel it in? It's going to be the first goal! Daniel Alessi comes up with maybe Doonside's most important goal in 5 years! It's taken half a decade from three Peters down, and staying down, back up. Has Daniel Alessi just started a new trend here? Got his side, a set piece. So from one side to the other, a professional foul, and now perhaps something that's caused Adam Mantaruglu in between the sticks. A couple of issues today. Well, I'm saying it right now, a second goal for Doonside would surely wrap things up.
Well, that's a big call. There's still a lot of football to be played.
I mean, swinging towards
it's
that
a good
front
ball, though.
Oh!
He's
caused Ponds so many issues in recent weeks. He's chill like that. Doonside come from Glendenning Reserve to Blacktown Football Park, a place they love to play, and Ethan Eichen especially. A home away from home, a grand final championship perhaps. On cue, the second goal. Ethan Eichen, bleached blonde hair, and he's chill like that. On Sunday, as I exit out the back of this scissor lift, which I've done many times this year on away day games for the commentator games, of course, for our Deploy Premier League 1 and 2, and start making my way towards you. On Sunday, a repeat of a fixture that we wish we could have had on Mother's Day for Female Football Week. Rydalmere versus, of course, Rydalmere, the Premiers versus the Golden Boot hosts in Parkley, the GDSFA Best versus the BDSFA Best. It was goals galore. There were some fantastic ones scored. Goal of the finals nominations have been already sent in from that game. The all-age one women's Premier final. What kind of positions he takes up here, but forget about that. Larabina's into the box and asking a lot of the keeper on the follow-up. Weeby is there on the line and in! Well, she scored early the last time she was here. She stole all the plaudits the last time she was here, and she's well on her way to doing it again. A new strike partner this time. Is headed back towards their own goal, and then the bounce is awkward. Can there be an equaliser here? Similar to the first, and like the first, Parkley find the goal. And guess who? Remember the time that you scored your goal and send it in. And the header! Well, she'd been so good at making saves, Shannon Williams. But Rydalmere on the cusp of half-time. By their captain. The ultimate contribution in a game 700 odd days after the last time they won the trophy here. Rydalmere, through Sophia Asfor, have found the one to put them ahead once again. A corner came to their undoing last time. Can Rydalmere find another one here? Tekik rising! Off the bench, onto the score sheet. The corner works wonders again. Rydalmere too strong from the set piece. Now with the ball, Sarah Comet on the turn, trying to find Charlvik, and she rifle it towards goal! She can! And now almost certainly a championship going the way of the Premiers. Double trouble for them, but Charlvik on the turn, scoring a goal for her to remember. Good looking ball though, well done, and it's in! I'm not sure even Parkley know who the goal scorer were. But there's still time, they say, and rush back towards the halfway line they do. We don't have highlights for this one as I come closer finally and say hello to you guys. But I can tell you about what our Spartans and AYL girls and boys did over the last weekend. Our 14s, having been premiers by a landslide, and they deserve all the respect and plaudits for that, had an unexpected loss in truth in their semi-final, and their season is now thus over. it was painful, to be real, to take away from what I've written down here. It was painful to find out that result. Obviously, I had to be here. I couldn't be there to watch it, as I would have loved to have been. But they will recoup and they will go again next season. I have absolutely zero doubt. They were premiers for a reason. Just didn't happen on the day. What did happen on the day, though? Our 15s and 16s are through to the grand finals tomorrow, which will be at Valentine Sports Park, as I mentioned. So finally giving away what I mentioned in the intro of this episode. So grand finals away for them tomorrow. Our 15s were 7-1 winners. Our 16s were 5-4 winners in the most incredible of games. I felt the emotion coming through the streams and all the tagged at Blacktown Spartans posts that were going up on Instagram that I could see through our Spartans account. You can obviously go and check our Instagram account and Facebook account for those immediate post-match reactions. 5-4 up, being down by goals throughout the game and barely leading throughout to end the game in front was amazing, and I'm hoping for something as half as entertaining, and perhaps my heart will be able to take that when it does come to tomorrow. It's going to be an incredible end to the season, I'm sure, whether it goes their way or not. And 15s and 16s in particular have been so amazing this season as well. Great end to the seasons for them. Finally, our AYL 14s boys are into the final as well. Premiers, but they've made it to the grand final, led by Pons right back and one of the players of the season in Chris Dalkeith, having come into his half-decade mark as his time as the coach with these guys. They were 2-1 winners over Nepean, and they faced their bitter rivals for this season, Southern Branch, in the final, 4:15 p.m. at Valentine Sports Park. Again, I'll be there covering it. I'll make sure I change shirts from the Spartans one back into this one before I cover that and give a little intro to that. It's going to be fantastic. These two teams have been battling out all year, and it's no surprise that they've made it into the grand final as well. Otherwise, on to the interviews. Thanks for listening to a pretty long intro. And up first is Lord's legend, Frank Labra. Okay, my eyes itchy. Familiar face on the Blacktown Football Hour podcast returns again. Someone who was smiling when he was here the first time, and I'm sure he's been smiling in the last couple of days too, following some championship glory here at Blacktown Football Park, the complex here, where all of our grand finals are happening. Frank, it's wonderful to have you back on here. You were such a hit with all of our regular viewers, and you got some really good responses, and we were talking about you and wanting to have you back on, and I guess thankfully, for the purposes of that, you guys took out the championship as well. So first of all, thanks for coming here, braving the wet and the cold that we're outside in. You know, I know you're back and forth with moving up and down the coast at the moment, up and down the state, so I'd like to thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your time, and to be honest, I'm flattered that you asked me to come here, and there's such a little interest on our little team, you know. I mean, such a big interest in our little team, so thanks for that, mate.
Of course. No, well, Lord's obviously not one of our bigger clubs in terms of members each year, but has had a lot of teams here in grand finals, and I think you guys were absolutely deserving of this, and I'm glad you were able to come back in. So his 12s, obviously from Lords, they weren't minor premiers. So let's talk about that.
Okay, yeah.
So when we spoke to you when you were right at the top of the table, like you were around the top of the table part, you were battling it out, I believe, with Prospect, if I...
No, it was the Ponds. The Ponds,
okay.
Yeah, they took out the minor premiers, and they've gone to champions.
Of course.
Well, good luck to them.
Absolutely. Best of luck to them, and we'll keep an eye on that. We've got some games happening of those here in a couple of weeks. Now, you were very close and around there when we last spoke, but how did it end up? And were you disappointed to not get it, or was it just, it's in the finals at that point?
Look, to be honest, it's no one's fault. It was just all the catch-up games, the bad weather we've had, you know. It sort of impacted of how many kids you can get on the game, you know, in the midweek games and things like that. We had a couple of losses and a couple of draws during that time, so we sort of missed out by 1 point. But it was pretty close, so, you know, I'm happy sorry, I lost my words.
Where you finished up?
Yeah, where we finished up. So we're happy with that. The kids did really well, you know.
Talk to me about your run into the grand final and being here last weekend. So, tell me about the games that you guys had to get here.
Yes, so in the semi-finals we played the Ponds. It was a really tough game. We went into extra time, and then we went to penalty shootouts. It was actually quite a good experience for the kids. Both teams really wanted it, you know, so it was an amazing game to watch.
Sure. A 12s penalty shootout, I can't imagine anything more nerve-wracking for a bunch of 11 and 12-year-olds, sometimes even younger as well. So what you noticed from that, let's talk about penalties for a second, actually, because it always brings a lot of interest with it.
Sure.
Did you guys practice that in the build-up, or did you
We
not
actually
expect to be there? So did you tell them aim for a corner, keep it low? What was it?
Yeah, we definitely practice a lot. We obviously, I picked my 5 or 6 strongest players, and I know they can kick and they know where to locate the ball. So we did a lot of practice training. I used to put some markers behind the goal, and hopefully get as close as possible to the pole.
Sure. Was it more a case of keep taking the penalties until you hit the same spot consistently, like 5 times in a row, for example, or was it just how did you sort of treat that? Because you don't want to put too much pressure on such young
Yeah,
minds.
well, that's so we practice whenever we got the opportunity to practice those penalty shootouts. It's normally towards the end of the training session. We used to get our keeper there. He's quite a good keeper, Sack, and then I used to just let them know, just keep it as far away from the keeper as possible.
Sure. Well, good on you guys, and good on you,
Thank
Zach,
you.
for making those saves as well. You get to the grand final. Which
Yep.
field were you guys on, by the way?
We're in field 2.
You're in
What an
field two?
amazing field that was, to be honest. Beautiful, absolutely
It's
beautiful.
been used so rarely throughout the year, and obviously it's quite prestigious with who usually trains on it, with the future and the young Matildas as well. So it's got that bit of that feeling about it, if you know the context, I guess. So yeah, it's a wonderful field, and I'm sure the rain right now is going to help it before this weekend. Now, who were you up against in that grand final?
The Ponds.
Ponds once again. So
Once
they made
again.
their way. Was it a second Ponds team, or was it?
No, same Ponds team. So they played it out against Prospect, and they beat Prospect. So, and then we met up once again in the grand final.
So first v second in that first week.
Yep.
You went straight in. You had that
Yep.
week off. Then
Correct.
that means, and then Ponds made their way back in. So, how much different of a game was it compared to that grand final qualifier?
Look, it was quite intense again, the game, because I think both teams really wanted it. Both teams, I think, had a lot of training. Both all the kids in both of the teams, they just play their little hearts out.
So, what was the final score in the end of that game?
Final score was 2-0.
Final score was 2-0. So didn't go to penalties this time, and you guys didn't have to hold your nerve once again. But
No.
it would have been a great field to do it on, that's for sure. When you won that game, did you
Yep.
feel like you guys? It was like you'd finished just behind in second by 1 point in the regular season, and you come back to beat them in the grand final qualifier, then in the grand final itself. What were the celebrations like the second that final whistle went?
Look, the kids were rapt, absolutely rapt. I was so happy for the kids, especially because I'm not going to be with them as of next year. We're moving away to another state, and I've had these kids since under 7s, so it was a good way to finish my coaching career with these little kids.
How did you go about announcing that to them, by the way? Because I'm sure there will be people watching who aren't going to be doing it next year, as in coaching, for whatever reason. Maybe they might be moving, they might be going somewhere else. How did you sort of announce that to them, and how do they take that?
Look, it was we sort of I told them about the idea of what we were trying to do from the start of the season, and then when my wife and the family we made the decision to actually move, we sort of told the team, and it was actually, we had a little dinner the other day, and so the kids said some really beautiful stuff, and definitely brought a tear to the eye.
Sure. Now, in those presentations, when you do win the grand finals, obviously there's a chance for the coaches / captains to speak.
Yep.
Do you remember some of the words that you used there, some of the sentences that you used, or was it just too much caught up in the moment?
For that actual dinner that we had, did you mean?
No,
Or on
even
the presentation?
just right after post game when you won the grand final.
When we won, look, to be honest, we were a bit lost for words and jumping for joy. We spoke and how well the team did and stuff like that. To be honest, everyone did an amazing job that day, and all the kids deserve that.
Sure. Now, one thing that I know coaches do struggle with, and it is more difficult the younger you go as well, is the involvement of parents and how much influence you take from that. How did you, obviously we spoke about how you managed that when we last spoke on a podcast, and you were managing it very well and admirably, and you had your boundaries, and you allowed them to speak when it was right and premeditated. You come into your last game, into a grand final, up against your rivals for the season, and perhaps even in years gone by and beyond, and this is your final way to go out. How happy were the parents knowing that was the end of your journey and it was done in that way?
Yeah, I think it was I'm not sure how to answer that, Mark, to be honest. Look, there's a lot of emotions, to be honest, the kids knew that we got to the finals. We worked really hard to get there, and I think there was a lot of pressure on the kids themselves. I didn't put that pressure on them. I just told them to make sure they enjoy the moment. It's hard to get to a grand final.
Absolutely.
For them to just enjoy the moment.
Sure. One thing I'll say as well, I won a grand final once when I was in my youth days, and I remember my father took it upon himself to come in and give us a talk to us and my team about how to mentally approach the game. We had finished fourth. We got battered by the team that we were facing. We ended up beating them with an amazing defensive performance. Shout out to those guys if by some miracle they happened to watching it all the way from the hills. How did you go about the mental approach?
Okay, so during training and when we were speaking to the kids, I just told them not to put so much pressure on themselves, just to visualize what they're supposed to do on the field. Who's next to them, who's behind them, and stuff like that. As I mentioned before, we play a very easy formation. I don't sort of play kids in too many different positions. I try to develop what they're good at, so they really know who's next to them, in front of them, and stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
From a footballing perspective, although we might not have you back here next year, we won't, obviously. You're going to go up the states, upstairs into Queensland, and I want to know: is football still going to be something that your youngest, who's in that team, obviously in your team? Are you going to put him straight into a team up there?
Yeah, 100%. We've already been doing a bit of research, see where are the local clubs where we would like to live. So, yeah, definitely would have. I'm not sure if hopefully I can coach again, but I'm not sure the situation in those clubs. But yeah, I will definitely would like to help.
Well, you've done this in sevens, you said, so
yes.
You've had them for coming up to 5 years now. So it's a long time, and perhaps you need a year, a break to settle in, because obviously a lot of work goes into it. And credit to all the coaches that made it to the end of the season, those who helped along the way, and obviously those who got them to grand finals as well, and those who won it, because it's a big effort for not a lot of reward. But I think that's why we have conversations like these on our Blacktown Football Hour podcast, even though we're out in the rain. And I made you take off your jacket as well. Maybe one final question,
Sure.
just regarding you and your 5 years. And obviously it's difficult to have obviously you can't be mates with the 12-year-olds, and there's got to be that boundary there. But in terms of what you learnt about these people as young teenagers, and or they're about to be that next year, do you feel a sense of pride in knowing that a part of the way that they feel about sport and part of the way that they feel to trust people is because of the work that you've done over the last 5 years, and you've been a big part of their lives?
Absolutely, and I did tell them in their speech that they did change me for the better, and I hope that I made a little impact in their own lives of bringing the best out of them.
Absolutely. That's lovely. That's what I wanted to hear, and that's the role of a coach. I think is the role of a coach from the perspective I have, and those who do really well is someone who can connect on a deeper football level, and if someone who in parting, there was a couple of tears that were shed, like you said, at the presentation night you guys did. I think that's fantastic, but also heartbreaking at the same time. You're gonna have to find somebody else from Lords to come on and be our representative of the club on our podcast.
Thank you.
But yeah, maybe as a final thing, in terms of throughout the years, what else has maybe been some of the key highlights? This maybe being the best one, but what's gone on in years gone by that you think is worth mentioning now that maybe they like to hear if they listen to this?
Look, to be honest, the biggest fulfillment as being a coach is seeing how the kids progress and develop, and you sort of get a lot of satisfaction out of it, that you see the kids develop and they get better, and I think as a coach, that's what makes me come back and do it again.
Sure. I wish you all the best of luck for you and your family, because it does take a little bit of that and a bit of bravery to get up and move, especially halfway across Australia in that sense, or upstairs, I guess I've been saying a couple of times. I hope that your youngest is able to step right into that team, and I'm sure your researches will come to fruition, and I'm sure he can be just as successful there. It's going to be hard to not have you on, because I could have very easily done it every 10 episodes or so, done a catch-up, but Perhaps we'll actually talk to you next year, and we might even do a Zoom in. I won't ask you to
Why
come all
not?
the way down here, but we'll catch up and we'll
I'd
see
love
how
to.
it's all going.
Thank you very much.
I certainly hope you can get back to the coaching scene as well.
Nah, definitely.
Frank,
Thank
it's
you,
been a
mate.
pleasure this year.
Thank you very much for your time.
And congratulations to those 12s from the Lords, okay?
Thank
See you
you.
later, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Tonight I'm joined by Adam Hardis, who is the president of Ropes Crossing Strikers, one of our newest, if not the newest club that we have of our 24 in the association. They've only been around, this being their 7th year, and they've achieved a lot. And speaking of only being around for 7 years, from that 7 years they've got 13 teams into grand finals this year, which 9 have already played. There's some more to come this weekend. It's an incredible achievement. 13 is a really high number, and we're going to talk about some of those games, but particularly focusing in on the women's side of the game and those who made it to the grand finals. But first of all, Adam, for the first time in the podcast, we've had you on, so very thankful to have you here, for a former board member of the BDSFA, which I was only informed of today. So someone who is obviously very, very well respected around the grounds, and it's an honour to have you on. So thanks for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So I'm sure you'll be able to speak over the wind and rain that's down and around us. So I think we should get right into it. So how long have you been the president, by the way, of Ropes?
As president, I think it's 4 years now.
4 years, so that's most of the time.
Half the time, yeah. So 3 or 4 years it's been as president. So before that was as treasurer on the committee. So it was,
So in your time, if you can cast your mind back up, I haven't actually prepared you for this exact question, but is this the highest amount of teams you've ever had in a grand final?
Yeah, by far. I think 2020 was our next highest. I think we had 6 that season. So,
which is still incredibly commendable, considering how early the stage of the club that you were in at that time. So even now, it's an amazing thing. Now let's talk about some of those games in particular. A mix from youth to all age, men's and women's. Games were happening all around the grounds, and I've got a couple of them written down here. The very first one was actually against Parklea, which you guys went 2-0 down in, unfortunately. It was the over-30s Division 2 for the women. Did you get to watch that game?
No, I missed that one. I was up watching our all-age, the over-35 men Division 1 game. But from all the reports, they played really well. But the better team on the day won. Sure. But the ladies in that team did the club proud. They've sort of come together the last couple of years. It's their 2nd year together. So they've done really well to get where they are already.
A lot of our all-age teams have been established for a long time, even outside of football as well, which is how a lot of these teams start. So to know that they're only in their 2nd year and doing what they're doing already, it's very commendable, because I think that in time, maybe even next year, you guys will be at the pinnacle. So that's certainly really, really awesome. Now I want to talk about a certain penalty shootout that was happening that you were watching on that night, on that first Friday night, happening on Field 2, the Future Matildas field.
Yeah.
A 6-5 in the penalty shootout. Heart and mouth, was it?
Yeah, it was. So I know those boys, and especially Titchy, the keeper, he was having a heart attack because he's not a goalkeeper.
Wow. Okay.
So he's a field player that just played in goals because no one else could. So it's Michael Vieira you've had on the cast before. So yeah, it was very heart and mouth, and the boys got the job done the hard way. But yeah.
Sure. We'll chat to Michael Vieira in time, not on this week's episode, but I'm sure we'll get him on in the next couple of weeks. He was fantastic to talk to in more ways than just about football. So it was good to know that his boys did what they've been doing all season, that was winning, and this time it was by any means possible. There were a couple of games on the Saturday, 4 to be exact, and from what I'm looking at here, just the two went your way. 2 of those games in which you actually scored 4 goals. So those under 13s and under 15s in particular doing quite well. But those 12s and 10s who made it to the final but didn't quite win the very last game. Huge respect to those guys for doing it. Just in general, how long have some of those youth teams been together for, if you can wrap your head around that?
Well, I think the biggest shout out has to go to our under 12s. So they're all made up of under 10s and under 11 players. And to get this far in the minor premiership like they did, I think was phenomenal. Like you can't imagine that though. And last year in the under 10s, they weren't a great side. They struggled for results, but we sort of pushed them up into this age bracket to sort of help their development, and they really come a long way. So that was a big standout for us as a club to see them do so well. Heartbreaking for 10, 11-year-olds to lose on penalties, and heartbreaking to watch it as well. But that was great. The 15s, again, they've been great all year. Jodie, who's the coach, and she's done a great job getting those boys and girls into that position. So.
For sure. And talk to me about what's been so influential on some of these younger teams. I know that you've had some big names who've got a lot of experience come in and help around, but to do it in such a short amount of time, like I said, I've used this word a couple of times, I've got to get over it, commendable, because to be only around for less than a decade, it's something that I think a lot of clubs would like to emulate. Obviously, ropes crossing is a growing area of the Blacktown districts. It's got a border to a couple of really populated areas, and the clubs that are forming for all local sports are forming with really high numbers. But you guys are turning those really high numbers into really good results. So Can you talk to me a little bit about how that's sort of gone about, and who's some of the key names in making that the way it is now?
So I think just in our formative years where we set that foundation. So even before we had the 12 months, pretty much 12 months leading into our first season. There was 4 of us, myself, Dennis, Kylie and Lindley, who sort of put in a lot of work. And grassroots, you've got to cater for everyone. It's not just kids who want to have a kick around the park. You got to cater for those kids who want to progress. And it was putting those sort of foundations in place where we could then give those opportunities and the programs in place so we can give those. So had a lot of summer clinics, a lot of academy clinics. We got Timmy Aiken involved very early, so one of his first coaching gigs was with us. So I'll take claim for what he's done now. So he's gone on to great things, and he's still involved with us, and everything he does with us is great. So it's laying that foundations and helping those kids succeed and giving those the opportunities. So
absolutely. Yeah. Yep, so foundational work in the foundational years of the club. So that's awesome, because to have that sort of leadership already, and it's a wonderful thing to think about what could happen in the next couple of years as well. Certainly, there are going to be some players and some parents of those younger players who are looking over their shoulder and looking at what you guys are doing. And obviously, that's why it's good to get you guys on the podcast and talk about what you're doing, because I think there's really good things coming out of a ropes crossing reserve, which is appropriately named. It's right in your name as well.
Yeah.
Now, we had a lot of rain this year. How hard did you have to fight to keep fields open and teams training? And did you think that you got in the field a bit more than maybe most clubs did?
Yeah, our field usually holds up pretty well.
That's why it was used for the finals, yep.
But it took a battering this year. It's probably the worst we've seen it. But I think it was good that we still get those games played. I think getting the kids out in the park and playing is very important. It's especially the last 2 years we've had, and everything we've had in between. So the rain was just a deterrent, but we got there, and it was good to get the kids on the park.
Yeah, for more than just football reasons, I'm gathering in terms of perhaps mental health and general well-being reasons, it's good to get them out there. So I'm glad you guys worked hard to do that. Some of those guys that you mentioned before in when we were talking about the youth teams in particular, those names have slipped my mind, but I remember Jody, one in particular.
Jody, yep.
Yeah. Those guys in general, how many hours have they put in extra to make sure that you've had things ready to go and training's gone ahead, including in this weather? Some of those guys, how much extra effort's gone in to put you guys with 13 teams come grand final weekends?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Like the amount of work, not just Jody, like Timmy and all that, but just the rest of the committee as well. So you got likes of Anthony and Sarah who, like, they're there 30, 40 hours a week minimum at the park, putting in the hard hours to make sure we can get on the park and make sure everything's running fine. And I think it's those guys you've got to take your hat off to, because without them, no one's getting on the park. So it's crazy the amount of hours people don't realise everyone puts in. But the likes of Jody, Timmy, all our first grade coaches, our reserves, we've got players in our reserves who are coaching our teams, and just those guys who are putting in the extra effort to help us out and and the parents who get the kids there.
Yeah, I think it's a whole collective effort in making sure that everyone can be there come game day, can be there on training nights, and it's a lot of respect has to go out to you guys for 30 to 40 hours on top of what people are doing in their normal lives, families and jobs, and their own fitness and their own games is amazing. So I think the proof is in the pudding as to why you guys have been so successful. come Sunday as well. So we've talked about Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then obviously we've got some games to preview upcoming, including your own games.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I know you'd love to be commentated, but if I can fit it in and come watch, I'll certainly be there, and we can talk about it perhaps on a Zoom in a couple of weeks and talk about that game, because I owe that to you for sure.
Yeah.
You had another three happen on that Sunday, forgive me. So Ropes up against Auburn in the All-Age Women's 4, a 3-0 win. Ropes up against the Tigers in the 17s. It was a 4-2 win. That was fantastic, by the way.
Yep.
That was really like a loud game out here. Lots of support for both sides, and that was here on our synthetic number 1.
Yep.
And then, of course, the All-Age Women's 2, which was a 3-2 over Glenwood Redbacks. So how many of those games did you get to watch, by the way?
Well, all those were kicking off at very similar times. So
Yep.
I watched the start of the All-Age Ladies 4s.
Yep.
As soon as I left, they scored. So I think the ladies were joking it was a bit of an omen that I left. So, but no, they did really well to where they started this year to get from 4th spot into the grand final and get the win. I think it was great.
That's amazing.
But then I got to watch. I was up here with the 17 boys and just cheering those guys on and just. Yeah, it was a great game. I think the boys played really well all game.
They were minor premiers, weren't they?
Correct, minor premiers.
They played like it too.
So I think, they sort of come from behind and got the job done, and I think, they did really well. So I missed the All-Age Ladies too, because I watched them in the semis, and it was, if I could split myself in two, I'd do it. But
What can you tell me about those two ladies teams in particular? Because it's important we recognise those teams. We've had a couple who have been on for our men's teams in our Premier League so far for this episode. But with those ladies teams, what have you noticed from the sort of vibe at training or the
training?
No training?
Yeah. One team does. So our All-Age Lady 4s, the core of that squad's been with us since day one. They come across from another club in our first year. And they sort of have good years and bad years. When they're bad, they're really bad. But when they're good, it's like this year, and they'll go to the grand final. But this year, they started in the combined Div 2, Div 3 team, comp. I think they started very slow and got regraded and swapped with our other team, which went the other way. And I think they found the straps just at the right time towards the end of the year and scraped in and went on with it. With the All-Age 2s, they're a new team for us this year. So they've come across from the PN looking for a change. And they're just a great bunch of young ladies, early to mid-20s. They get down there, at least half a dozen train every week with their coach, Jim.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what numbers they get, they're always down there, which I think's commendable on their point, because I don't think I've trained for about 4 years. So I think it's great what they've done and what they're doing as a team. So I think.
What about the ropes crossing strikers' spirit? As we're joined by a moth here on the Blacktown Football Hour podcast for the first time this year, episode 26, starting up all sorts of funny things. There's not much perhaps in way of tradition just yet. I think you've got to build tradition and what you do come presentation day, and obviously a fireworks display, for example, or do you guys have a specific barbecue? You guys have got to build that over many years. There are teams that have been around for decades, half a century even. How are you guys, or how have you gone by in recent years? How are you going to celebrate these teams and make sure that they feel that their accomplishment is met by some sort of recognition from the club, and to make sure that they're going to come back next year? And even though that might not be a traditional thing, what are you guys planning on doing to congratulate so many successful teams?
Yeah, we've only had a quick turnaround, so our presentation's next week. So we've got a big dinner planned at the Leagues Club, one of our sponsors at St Mary's. So we've got a big dinner there, so we'll try and just celebrate as much as possible. I think it's our senior night, so it's only the adults, so we can have a bit of fun and just sort of let loose and celebrate the successes we've had and sort of think about the lesser teams that sort of didn't make it with the Prems and our couple of all-age teams. But I think it's just celebrating the success, and I think that's the best thing we can do is do that, is celebrate the wins and go from there.
Absolutely. Well, it's very rare to get a club president come on the Blacktown Football Hour podcast, but I don't think there's many better than Adam Hardis himself. You guys have got a game. Your team's got a game coming up and I know that you guys are excited for this one in particular. And if I can be there to watch it, I will certainly be there. So tell me about your season in particular a little bit in terms of the team and in terms of your season individually.
Yeah, so our team, we got together, we started, it was just mainly a few dads. In 2020, first year was the first year of COVID. We started in the low division, had a good run there, and then moved up last year and was doing all right. We're coming third in Division 3 or whatever it was, or Division 2 it was. And then this year they combined Division 1 and 2, and we've got our superstar team, or they call themselves the Superstars, the ex-Prems, who sort of won on Friday nights. They're athletes, we're not. Let's be honest. We're there for fun. We have a laugh. We enjoy our football. We've got some guys who've played at decent levels, but a sort of year very unfit like me, and we just have a laugh, have a kick around, and see how we go. And it's enjoyable. We go out, enjoy ourselves, and yeah.
Well, you get to enjoy yourself one more time. So before we do that, I'll just bring it back to your individual season. So tell me about, what does Adam Hardis do in the pitch? Is he a destroyer? Is he a team leader? Is he the in behind kilometres on his back kind of striker, the one that's always making those darting runs? What's your role?
I'd love to say I'm the guy who runs a lot, but if you ask anyone who watches me, they'll say I'm talking to the referee in the centre of the park and don't move from the centre circle. But I tell these guys I've scored a few goals, so I do what I got to do. I've either played midfield or striker, depending on what we got in troops. But I just go out and enjoy it. That's all it's about.
You're expecting a win as well? Is that what the expectation is?
I want the win. Yeah, it's been a tight tussle against Eastern Creek this year. So a win, 2 losses and a draw, I think we've had. So yeah, it'd be good to get even the tie up after in the big one. So.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I wish both sides the best of luck. For the 3 other teams, yours being the 4th to finish up, to go from the 9 teams that have played already to the 13 that'll be done come Sunday night in our final couple of days of grand finals. Just a final little touch on 13 is an incredible number.
Yeah.
I know you would have had some in the semi-finals. Perhaps there'll be years where in the semis or quarters, as you'd like to call it, there'll be years where the teams that made it this year might go out there. That's the way of finals football, but it came together really well for you guys this year, and you absolutely deserve the recognition that comes with that. Fantastic things happening at Ropes, as there are at many great clubs, but with the number of 13, which is usually unlucky, certainly not for you guys. So I'm glad that you guys were able to do what you did, and I think it is a wonderful program happening there. And again, thanks for letting us use the fields for our Premier League finals and so many games on that day as well. And it shows the amount of hard work that's going in on the pitch, in the clubhouse, when you guys go home. It's really, really commendable.
No, thank you for that.
Adam, thanks very much.
No worries.
First time on
Thank
the
you.
podcast,
Yeah,
and it's certainly not going to be the last time. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you. Cheers, mate.
As one of many segments today on our Blacktown Football Hour podcast, we are congratulating the winners of the competitions you've been looking and keeping an eye on all year. The last 6 months of competitions have been amazing. It's been great to get through a full season. And even though you can see it's raining behind me, we're back at Blacktown Football Park, and we've played through it all, and we've got to this point now where we're talking about the winners of some competitions in season 2022. I'm joined by the man whose side that he's coached for a number of years now and played alongside as well, whose team really started things off on the very first Friday night, Matt Hetrick, Eastern Creek Pioneer Soccer Club's coach, and someone who's been with that squad for a long time, reserve and first grade winners after being so close in the regular season to that elusive first spot. Matt, first of all, a huge congratulations. I didn't get to speak to you too much afterwards, but for good reason, of course. You guys were celebrating as is deserved. Tell me, when the whistle goes on that second one, and you've got a second championship to take, back up the road tomorrow reserve. What was the feeling like after such a successful night?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Look, it was, to be fair, it was probably a bit of relief. I've said before, it's been a long season, and look, the boys deserve all the credit. Just goes to show what can happen if we get a full strength squad on the park. That's why it's probably relief, just to be able to prove a point that we can do it. It's been tough with injuries and whatever else, and a season full of rain and whatever. But mate, just relief, and again, as I said, goes to show what can happen.
For sure. And we'd spoken about, and obviously viewers who might be unique to this episode can go and watch back our previews of the match, and it was good to finally have you guys at full strength. Or to an extent, I mean, you're missing your goalkeeper, which is probably the most important position in any sport. So to still come through was amazing. Look, that reserve grade game in particular, having been behind in second place by a 14-point deficit going into that, I think there was a case of foot off the gas for Prospect as a general squad mentality, and you guys capitalised that in the best way possible, by far and away the better squad, the better team, the better club on the night. With no disrespect meant towards Prospect, of course, I know how well you guys get along.
Yeah.
That reserve grade game, let's talk about that first. Having not had much attention on our podcast, I think it deserves it. So that's difficult, lots of chopping and changing, lots of players in and out, players who had to back up as well for the next game to some extent. What was it like knowing that you were so far behind in the season, and on the night you showed exactly what you can do? Yeah,
look, Prospects obviously deserved the way they sort of ended the season, 14 points clear, and I don't think they probably conceded more than 2 goals in a game probably all year, and it goes to show how good of obviously a club they are and the depth they have. But again, I reiterate, it's been tough for our reserve grade side as in general, and obviously Mitchell as well as coach. He's had to deal with me, obviously asking. He's got to try and not use my first graders as much as he can, and I need him for my game and that. But I think it showed on the weekend that if we could have had, if I could have just had 11 fresh every week, and he had, a good 12, 13 players to choose from, what we can do. And look, the boys were ready for it, mate. And yes, for anyone who watched the game, we didn't settle real well. Prospects, obviously the maturity and the way they've played all year, settled perfectly, and got away with it early. And then, our lads just hung in there. Special mention probably goes to young Benny Watson, who scored 4 goals on the night. I don't think I've seen that happen in a grand final before. So he certainly held it together and saved probably his best game for last game of the season. So
for sure, absolutely. Ben Watson, I think it was a delight. There was one point, if you go back and watch it in the commentary box, where I was just lost for words. It was such a big occasion, and for him to perform in the way he did, it was amazing. And I hope that we get to see him for many years to come in whatever capacity that is. Certainly put his name all over that one. You guys weren't winning that reserve grade game for a very large portion of the game. You were behind for a lot. You had to come back twice. What does that say about the boys coaching that side? Not as much you necessarily. I know that obviously the Hinton boys are more involved with that, but what does it say about those guys knowing that they are, somewhat new to coaching and they're clearly capable?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we got Danny on board last year just for his experience and what he's done in the game and his sort of expertise around coaching, and he just gives everyone a calm sort of head. And Mitchell's very similar. There was no panic at halftime. We knew if we settled back into the game after halftime that we'd create chances, and if we took our chances, the game could be anything. And every time we seemed to get near the goal, we seemed to get one in the second half. It was just one of those games. I was always concerned at times about the strength of Prospect, and at any time they could come back. But just the boys put in an extremely massive effort. There was a lot of blokes busted, a lot of blokes running on empty, and they put in one final game and deserve what they got.
For sure. It's been a long time coming for those boys, and I know of it particularly with the first grade squad because I've been more involved with them for the last 18 to 20 months that I've been here and covering you guys in games and match of the round games. Liam Hamilton from right wing scores on his 24th birthday. Brian Sohn, who has been all around the world for his football, has come to be an absolute hero and so well spoken as well here. Everybody performed in that first grade game fantastic from first minute to last, and I think it surprised a lot of people in the most respectful way that I can say it, because I think you looked like you could take it to just about any team. that could throw at you. I think in that first grade game in particular, you guys were about as sound as I've ever seen a team perform, certainly in my time here. Now, obviously, that was a lot closer on the table. You were only one point behind Prospect, who ended as premiers. So you could suggest that, maybe that was meant to be closer compared to reserve grade, and that's why reserve grade was much more of a shock. But I think it just shows how damaged you guys were throughout the season. And I think it's a massive credit to you guys. And when that final whistle goes, I want to talk about the celebrations a little bit. You guys were probably happier than any team I'd seen celebrate. And look, tell me a little bit, as much as appropriate that you can. Tell me about how the celebrations went on. Obviously, 2 very good games on the night.
Yeah, look, it was certainly a big night. Well, it was a big weekend. I'll probably say that. There was a couple of days where we were all together, a few of us on the drink for as long as we could certainly last. I'm certainly glad that that doesn't happen every weekend. We don't need to be doing that. But look, I think you're right, mate. I think it's we've said before, and I think I said it on last episode. We were asked, would the boys be able to take it up in PL1 if they were given promotion? And I said I'd back my boys to the hill. I think it showed sort of what we can do as a squad. Still, without a first choice goalkeeper, Kurt played 90 minutes in reserve grade and then jumped in between the sticks and was sound and did a perfect job. But we still had 10 or so players out. So it's sort of, the celebrations were probably, I guess, we looked happier and probably bigger than most teams, is because last year was cancelled and we were top of the league. Probably, in my eyes, deserved a chance at PL1 if there was an opportunity with how we finished and how both teams were going. And then this year, we make a late run and finish second, and I guess just it all come together on the night, and the boys deserved what they got.
Absolutely. Now, for those who didn't stick around till beyond the final whistle, or perhaps those who are tuning in and just weren't listening to what was being said, I saw you reveal it on Facebook, so I took it upon myself to say that it was okay, that it was public knowledge. You are stepping away, and perhaps the question I asked a little bit earlier about, the 2 Hinton boys stepping into their new roles was foreshadowing what I would ask you now. And so you obviously spoke very kindly about them, but those are to be your replacements while you take a break from football in whatever capacity that is. Who knows, we might see you around the grounds. I know we will see you around the grounds, but it depends on, in sort of what role that is, spectator or decision maker. If you want to talk a little bit about the decision, that's fine, but perhaps you'd rather talk about, leaving a legacy and how much the last 10 years with a lot of these boys, or close to it, has meant to you.
Yeah, look, it's been a tough couple of years, mate. It's takes a lot out of you as coaching, and a COVID year, and then a lot of weather this season. It does take a lot of time away from family. I've got a young family, and it's probably time to give back to them and not be around football for 6 or 7 hours every Saturday. Sort of every Thursday, and this week it was every Wednesday with a football match, and it's time to give back to them. And the boys, like, Danny's got way more experience than I have, and he'll slot straight in, and the boys love what Danny does and what he's about, and he'll improve them much more than I will, that's for sure. And Mitchell's just going to keep doing what he does, and help the squad grow. And he's been with me for a few years now, so he'll be right. Most of the boys are going back, so mate, I've got no concerns, mate. It's especially after the celebrations we just had. I don't need to go through another year of having to get on the drink with those lads at the end of the season again.
For sure. I'm not sure, by the way, what speaker's being used above us. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but it's all part of the personality.
Absolutely.
May as well reveal to viewers that behind here is the camera that's been used all year, so you're getting a bit of a behind the scenes experience today. Look, this isn't meant to be a 30-minute podcast, detailing every moment of the season. So look, that's the real questions I wanted to cover and give you a big congratulations on here again. Like I said, it was a fantastic set of games to wrap up a fantastic time, and your spell will be remembered, I'm sure, and it'll be great to have you back. But yeah, I think it's good that you can be honest about the toll that it takes. Like, I know I demand a lot from you as the commentator, and shirt numbers and a bit of information. So I know that some things like that can be difficult. In the end, we are still just community football who just like to do things as professionally as we want. And look, I'd like to thank you from me to you, and especially while everyone can see you've been wonderful to be around, and very, very helpful for what I like to do, and you've helped bring out the best in the competition. So congratulations on what you've achieved, and I hope to see you around the ground soon.
No, thanks, mate. Look, you're doing a cracking job, mate. So keep it up, and I'm sure everyone appreciates what you're doing, mate. So good on you.
For sure, and we all appreciate your football.
Thanks, Mark. Cheers, pal.
See you then. Bye-bye. Obviously, I can't show you a goal of the week at the end of this Blacktown Football Hour podcast, but what I can say is another big thank you, not a final thank you, but another big thank you to everyone who's made these grand final weekends go so smoothly. And from the Spartans' perspective, thank you to everyone who's been so involved with that. In the Phoenix League, some great teams coming out of that GDSFA, especially that Rydalmere All-Age Women's Ones, Premiers and Champions. They're just fantastic. It's been great. A couple more days to go. Mini Roos Fun Days here tomorrow. Don't forget about that on Saturday. Games here tonight. Games here on Sunday. And of course, the final one that I'll commentate for the year will be there too. No goal of the week, like I said, which means we're just going to go straight into the outro. Thanks to all of the podcast guests who featured on this week. Make sure you keep an eye on your social media feeds ahead of the 14s AYL, the 15s and 16s Spartans girls in their grand finals at Valentine Sports Park, that way down the M7. And we will see you in episode 27, and what I hope is not the last episode of the year. So remember, 15 likes you want to hit on this one, 15 likes you want to hit on the next one. Heck, go above that. If it's already on 15 likes, make it 16. If it's already on 25 likes, make it 26. If it's on 150 likes, make it 151. Thanks, guys. I've been Mark DePoli. You've been you, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Cue the outro music.